we would take a serious look. Also, as India made a statement with freest, fairest and cleanest elections in J&K since the 1980s, underscoring a vibrant democracy, Pakistan suffered a major setback. A Pashtun jirga decided to evict Pak army and declare a common Pashtun commune on both sides of the Durand line between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Headlines miss the developments, and I shall unspool the strategic import of this for the region. And finally, a quick lowdown on the buffoonery of Justin Trudeau through his testimony before the Foreign Interference Commission. You will love to watch. Let's get going. The drumbeats that accompanied Dance of Democracy as citizens came out in large numbers to shrug off the past and look to future underscored the bold statement of a confident India, that of finality of Jammu and Kashmir's legal status as an inalienable part of India. The pictures were heartening. Omar Abdullah on the Chief Minister's chair with just one flag, the tricolour on the table. For the young ones among the viewers, the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir used to have two flags and its own constitution. Not anymore. The centre has invested in electoral democracy to heal the wounds of the militancy decades and ensure the integration of post-Article 370 J&K with the rest of India. It is now up to the Omar government to take it from here and deliver a new dawn. Nothing is easy in Kashmir. It's not going to be easier this time too. For one, the results have expectedly followed the regional and religious fault lines. Hindu majority Jammu largely voting for the BJP, Muslim majority Kashmir voting for the National Conference. In a mark of commendable realism, Omar Abdullah has made Surinder Kumar Chaudhary his Deputy Chief Minister. Party hopper Chaudhary defeated BJP's JK President Ravinder Raina from Naushera in the hills of Jammu. Also, post the abrogation of Article 370 and the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act of 2019, the Union Territory is now like Puducherry in terms of its governance structures. The Lieutenant Governor is the real decision maker, the Chief Minister having a restricted say both on the legislation and executive side. First, public order and police are now directly with the centre, with the Chief Minister and the Assembly having no jurisdiction. Second, as per Section 36, finance bills have to mandatorily be certified as such by the LG before being introduced in the Assembly. Third, Section 53 provides the LG discretion on matters relating to the All India Services and the Anti-Corruption Bureau. Taken together, the three provisions have a strong centralizing tendency built into the new governance structure in Jammu and Kashmir. There is a long history, of course, of the region to justify these provisions. But what is important is that a beginning has been provided. Let me give you some specifics. Jammu and Kashmir stands at the bottom of states and union territories of India when it comes to direct tax collections and is on top of the list when it comes to defaulting on paying for power with country's highest transmission and distribution losses. As in Hindu Jammu, so in Muslim Kashmir, it's been a struggle to replace old analog meters with digital smart meters. Jammu and Kashmir depends on the centre for up to 70% of its annual budget. Decades of neglect have meant that against the potential of a huge 20,000 megawatts of hydroelectric power generation, the territory has installed capacity of a paltry 3,000 odd megawatts only. And the state is not able to pay for even that. Over the last 5 years since the abrogation, projects worth 16,000 megawatts have been kick-started and might see delivery over the next couple of years. The Indus Water Treaty has been a big bottleneck in harnessing the true potential of rivers Indus, Jhelum and Chenab in terms of power generation. As it exists today, India can only make use of river runoff water and not actively manage the flow to increase production. Not many might remember, the erstwhile Jammu and Kashmir's State Assembly had even passed a resolution in the early 2000s demanding a renegotiation of the treaty with Pakistan. Now that it is happening, the new assembly should bring a fresh resolution supporting the centre on the review. The Kashmiri Pandit angst is an ever-present feature of JK politics that cannot be wished away. The National Conference, as also the PDP, both mentioned return of the Hindu minority to the valley, howsoever perfunctorily, in their respective manifestos. Mirwaiz Umar Farooq mentioned the same in his first Friday sermon after coming out of house arrest last week. After having invested so much of its political capital, it would be in New Delhi's interest to enable the new government in Srinagar to deliver the goods. Long breaks due to strikes and curfews used to be a recurring feature in Kashmir. That's a thing of the past. School days are not being lost. Working days are not being eaten up by conflict. According to the NSSO data, only 8% males and 3% females graduate in Kashmir every year. The education sector's struggle must have had a demoralizing consequence on the society. Data collected by Kashmir's Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences shows that heroin consumption in the valley increased an astounding 1,500% between 2016 and 2019. Then there is the mental health crisis which goes with every conflict zone. In effect, there's a lot on which the Omar government can hit the ground running without wasting time on dead and buried forever issue of 370. Jammu and Kashmir is sitting on investment promises of rupees 85,000 crores. Against that, actual investment on the ground has been only about 3,000 crore rupees since 2021. Seems paltry till you see the picture from before 2019, when the average annual investment in Jammu and Kashmir was rupees 300 crores. Now it is at 1,000 crores. Still, it's a landmine of growth and prosperity waiting to be harnessed. Reports suggest J&K administration has run out of land bank to accommodate all investment proposals. Omar government, instead of restricting land purchase by outsiders, as is being suggested, should focus on increasing the land availability instead for industry. For prosperity is the ultimate autonomy that a government can give to its citizens. And finally, the Pakistan angle. Has the Naya Jammu and Kashmir made Pakistan irrelevant? Pakistan failed to get a special session of the UNSC on abrogation of Article 370, failed to get a special session of the OIC, Organization of Islamic Countries, failed to get a resolution passed at the UNHRC in Geneva. It's a 47-member body which includes 8 from OIC, brother Muslim countries: Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bahrain, Cameroon, Somalia, Egypt, Iraq, Nigeria, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Senegal. Pakistan needed only 16 votes, but failed even that. Not one country included Kashmir in their statements. The Pakistani argument is built on the cornerstone of Muslim majority of the territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Shorn of all diplomacies, what Pakistan calls the unfinished agenda of partition is that since the 1947 division of the country happened based on religion, Muslim majority Jammu and Kashmir should have gone to Pakistan. While Kashmir has started marking Muharram and Ashura after a gap of 3 decades, in the Qurram Agency of Pakistan, Shia-Sunni conflict has claimed over 100 lives past few months. It even led to a diplomatic tiff with Iran calling out Pakistan for the targeting of Shias. The same Jaish-e-Mohammed that claims to spread terror on behalf of our Kashmiri brothers and sisters has become a tool to target Shias in Qurram. Failing Kashmir, an exasperated former ambassador of Pakistan to India, Abdul Basit, has even written in his autobiography that Pakistan should stop projecting Kashmir as an Islamic issue at all. Just for my Kashmiri brothers and sisters to understand how duplicitous a cheat Pakistan has been with them. In 1963, in the aftermath of the 1962 war with China, Pakistan signed a boundary agreement and ceded chunks of Kashmir territory to China. It's a spineless, opportunist nation not interested in either sovereignty or territorial integrity of Jammu and Kashmir. there's this interesting bit from that China-Pak agreement. Article 6 of that piece of Pakistani spinelessness on Kashmir says that negotiations with China would be reopened once the so-called Kashmir dispute is settled between India and Pakistan. Meaning, Pakistan is obliged to renegotiate boundaries of Jammu and Kashmir with China, while it has been telling Kashmiri brothers and sisters that the issue is just between them and Pakistan. It has already surrendered sovereignty to China. Now, of course, New Delhi has changed the terms of engagement permanently. As the recent visit of External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar to Islamabad showed, no talks till terror goes. There is a formalized policy of inflicting costs for every major terror act. Covert ops are on a scale never seen before, and India has shown the resolve to go up the escalation metrics to deter Pakistan from any major misadventure. Pakistan has internal mess to sort out and is economically on an IMF life support. Does not mean that Pak army has lost all capacity to create trouble, as we are seeing in Jammu. Just that, its internal distractions have worked to India's advantage over the last 5 years. So we can't be complicit. That's why we need to know what's happening inside Pakistan. And that's our second story. This week, a section of Pakistani elites was gloating over successful holding of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization (SCO) summit in Islamabad, which had leaders from about a dozen odd countries come and discuss geopolitical weather. SCO is effectively China's policy arm for Central Asia. India is in it to make itself heard on a platform which otherwise can turn into a China club. But I am on to something else. Not far from Islamabad and Rawalpindi, in the Jamrud district of the troubled Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, a tribal council met and made 22 resolutions, most of them against the Pakistani state. Called the Pashtun Qaumi Jirga, the council was organized by indigenous rights movement Pashtun Tahaffuz Mahaz, or PTM, which has among its objectives a border-free Pashtun state straddling both sides of the Durand line. It is like Pakistan's biggest strategic bugbear come true, and it happened this week. The Jirga demanded that there should be a visa-free travel of Pashtuns along what Pakistan claims to be its international border with Afghanistan, and which all Afghan governments, including the present one of Taliban, dispute and disagree with, the Durand line. Historically, and for the oomph factor, the attention has always been on the Red Cliff line or the India-Pakistan border. But it is the Durand line which has always been hotter in terms of conflict and war vis-a-vis the Red Cliff border. Just a brief history of the Durand line before I give you the import of the Pashtun events of this past week. After having failed in the first and second Afghan wars in the 18th century, the British adopted a two-pronged strategy to secure British India's northern borders along the Hindu Kush ranges against an expanding Russian empire. First was a policy of territorial acquisition by creep, slow capture of small parcels along the colonial borders, and then to negotiate with the then Emir of Afghanistan, a border which would formalize the boundaries, effectively turning Afghanistan into a buffer state between the British and the Russian super empires. When Sir Mortimer Durand, the then Foreign Secretary of the British government, arrived in Kabul to negotiate with the Emir, Abdur Rahman Khan, in 1893, he found an unwilling negotiator. The Emir opposed the border that would coerce him to abandon his formal sovereignty over the Pashtun tribes, which would remain outside the Afghan border. When Durand asked him why he wanted to keep Waziristan, for example, which was very poor on natural resources and was scarcely populated, Abdur Rahman answered with one word, Naam, which means honor. The Khan was ultimately forced to sign the agreement under the threat of an economic embargo. He was dependent on the British for arms, ammunition, and subsidies to maintain control over his territories. He also wanted to avoid a superpower war between Britain and Russia on his land. As with the Emir in 1893, so with the Emirate of Taliban now, and all and sundry who have ruled Afghanistan in the intervening centuries. Nobody has ever accepted the legitimacy of the Durand line. Pakistan inherited the 1893 agreement. There was never a formal ratification between Islamabad and Kabul of the same. Now here is an interesting twist. When the partition plan was put into action by the British, Pashtun leader Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, also known as Frontier Gandhi in our textbooks, declared that his people did not want to join Pakistan. They wanted to either be independent or be with fellow Afghans. But with British brokering, a referendum was held in which both the options were not on the table. The Pashtuns could either join India or Pakistan, which they ultimately did, again under the pressure of the British and the Muslim League. Can you imagine? Even this swathe of territory under Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province today did not want to be part of Pakistan. Imagine, had the British not played the great game and forced the Pashtuns to join, Pakistan would have been an even more moth-eaten Pakistan than what Jinnah ultimately got. But enough of history. Coming to the present. Centuries later, the great game has continued, only the faces changed, the players remaining the same. As the Russians came into Afghanistan in the late 1970s, the Americans propped up Taliban, with Pakistan becoming a willing partner. Through the 1980s, 90s, and the 2000s, the Afghans, particularly the Pashtuns, have continued to pay the price of war and strife. As Pakistan sought an elusive strategic depth in controlling Afghanistan and chose to become a staging ground for the radical, extremist, and terror elements in America's Afghan war, it has got equally singed, and the result is an active insurgency in both its provinces to the west, Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The angry Pashtun blames Pakistani deep state for all their ills, the sentiment morphing into militant Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the TTP, and a civil rights movement under the umbrella of the Pashtun Tahaffuz Mahas, or PTM. You know what Tahaffuz means? Self-respect, similar to Naam or honor, which was used by the Emir Abdur Rahman Khan in disagreeing with Sir Duran in 1893. The PTM organized a massive jirga this week. A panicked Islamabad put a ban on PTM ahead of the SCO summit, only to allow the jirga to take place, fearing wider repercussions. Despite a precondition not to do so, the participants were frequently seen flying Afghan flags during the 3 days of the jirga. The council passed 22 resolutions, which included a huge one. The Pashtuns have asked the Pakistan army to leave their territories in 60 days flat. Yes, in the next 2 months. Also, they have decided to raise a volunteer force, a Lashkar of their own, going into at least 200,000. Though as of now, it is supposed to be an unarmed force to administer Pashtun territories as per the Pashtun code, the Pashtunwali. Given the expected clampdown from the Pakistani state, this might morph into an active armed insurgency along the lines of the Baloch Liberation Army in Balochistan. But it does not stop here. Reading out the final declaration in front of thousands of his supporters, PTM leader Manzoor Pashtun demanded visa-free travel of Pashtuns on both sides of the Durand line. In a sign that the Taliban regime in Kabul is fully backing these developments, the affiliate TTP announced a ceasefire to facilitate the PTM jirga. This has made the Rawalpindi generals sweat. Not that the Pak army is going to get overpowered by the Pashtuns, but the resolutions and the visible backing by the Taliban puts spade to the fanciful idea of its strategic depth. You would recall that famous picture of General Faiz Hamid, the then ISI chief, at a Kabul hotel, a cup of tea in hand, in September of 2021. That was a month after the Americans had left Afghanistan. The smirk on the general's face spoke volumes about the sense of control the Pakistani deep state felt then. It thought Taliban would be a pocket regime. Far from it. The changes in Kabul emboldened the Pashtun sentiment and the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan to launch a full-blown war on Pak army. Hostilities reached a level where early this year, Pakistan's Army Chief, General Asim Munir, threatened to destroy Afghanistan. Undeterred and immediately after that statement, the Afghan Minister for Border Areas, Nurullah Noori termed the Durand line as imaginary and that it does not represent the official border between the two nations. Pakistan created Taliban in its bid to find a strategic depth in Afghanistan against India. Ironically, today, it is the Afghan Taliban which has found a strategic depth in Pakistan with an aligned civilian population. As that tongue twister goes, as you sow, so shall you reap. Pakistan has some chickens come home to roost for its indulgence with radicalism and terror over the last 4 decades. While they roost, they are also roasting the Pakistani nation. Wish them Godspeed. And the last story that can't miss a look this week. India and Canada are in a full-blown diplomatic war unleashed by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. A tit-for-tat expulsion of diplomats from both the sides was followed by a high-visibility deposition by Trudeau before an inquiry committee of the Canadian Parliament, which is looking into foreign interference during the 2021 elections of Canada. We know the developments. We know the inquiry itself is more specifically about Chinese interference in the elections, which helped Trudeau's Liberal Party, if not Trudeau personally. I have myself parsed through the 194-page interim report submitted by the committee in the month of May, and it has only a couple of paras on India's interference by way of targeting the Khalistani elements within the Canadian territory. The fact that Trudeau obfuscated and till the last offered no evidence to back his charges is now densely covered through the week. Listen to it once more.
Their asks of us was, well, how much do you know? Give us the evidence you have on this. And at that point, it was primarily intelligence, not hard evidentiary proof.
What also caught my attention in the same testimony is how a self-absorbed Trudeau throws his own chief of staff and the National Security Intelligence Advisor under the bus to save his skin. When asked why he did not get an earlier briefing on the Chinese interference information which his intelligence team sought to share with him, he chickens out by claiming that they were not supposed to show it to him, and he left it to their judgment. The National Security Advisor denied she could take that call. Now that's not a sign of a good leader, but I guess you get away with it if you are Trudeau. A brief profile. Trudeau is the son of Pierre Trudeau, Canada's Prime Minister between 1968 to 1979 and then 1980 to 1984. Good 15 years. The junior Trudeau was in fact born in office, his birth being announced by the Prime Minister's office. So it sort of gives you an idea of the pedigree, the legacy, the silver spoon with which Justin was born in 1971. He's a dynast. And as happens with most dynasts, rest is history. In the present, Trudeau is facing the biggest challenge to his political career, with most polls showing he's on his way out. But let's weave together for you a picture portrait of the Canadian Prime Minister through some videos of him past couple of years. Look at this one, in which he's being lectured by Xi Jinping to behave himself. Do you see the kind of anger she must have had while hectoring the kid?
Free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have. We will continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things we will disagree on, and we will have to.
Or look at this one, where Trudeau is seen gossiping about Trump. Or perhaps this one, where he's apologizing like a school kid for having a chocolate bar when the House was in order in Parliament.
Indeed, Mr. Speaker, I apologize. It was a chocolate bar, but I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Of course, members are not supposed to eat inside the House, but Trudeau sure has some sense of entitlement. Then there are a couple of more videos where Trudeau can be seen being confronted and heckled by commoners on the street for messing up governance in Canada. And the last one, Jair Bolsonaro, the then Brazilian president, the kind of right royal ignore he gives to Trudeau. Wish India could do that too. Thanks for watching.
Amity has been ranked amongst the top 3% universities globally, a testimony to Amity's globally benchmarked quality.